This character has done so much for you. I love what you've done with this character so much. And like I said, just to go back to talk about you come back for X-Men 97, I love that it's introducing people to see how much of a phenomenal performer you are for this character. You know, there've been so many renditions of the character. Steve Blum, speaking of which, who you met this year, and who's a dear friend of mine. I love Steve. What was it like meeting Steve Blum?
the first time that I met him, because I didn't know who he was, or I didn't know any of the, I didn't even know who did that. I remember tuning in because our show was canceled, and I really missed the guy whose voice I created, Wolverine. I was the first. And 2 years later, there's a new series, or maybe even the next year, called Wolverine and the X-Men. Is that what it was called?
Yes.
Yeah. And I remember seeing it just popped on TV, and because I wanted to hear what the voice. I said, "Why?" Why wasn't I asked to do this? Like, because they said, gave me the excuse. It's a younger version. Like, they're younger or something. But what, they've aged? They've gone backwards. It's like they're younger Wolverine. Yeah, apparently. Okay. So I tuned in. Wolverine came out and said his first line, and I just went, bink, turned the TV off. So I'm at this Comic-Con. I forget, it was somewhere in Texas, and someone told me that about 12 tables down, Steve Blum was down there, and with his pictures and stuff, that voices that he's done, get mostly games and stuff like that. And I said, okay, Steve who? And they said, Steve Blum. So I went for a walk and put this coat on, and put these in my hands, these babies on my hands, and walked up and stood in front of his desk. And he's just sitting there, writing or doing something. And I just stood there, like, with the arms crossed. And he just looked up and went, oh shit! And he jumped out of his chair, and literally, I can't. I'm going to do it from this position because I can't stand up, because my head will disappear. I'll hit the roof. Boink. Yeah. So Steve stood up, and he didn't put the claws on because I had the claws on. I was just standing there, and he just stood up and he went. He bowed down and said, "Stop it, bub." And he said, "I said it's nice to meet you. I'm Cal." He said, "Oh, I know who you are." He said, "You set an awfully high bar, my friend." He said to me, which is a great compliment. And I said, "So quit trying to jump over it, bub." And he just laughed, and we had our picture taken and talked for like 25 minutes or whatever, and just had a great time in picture taken. And now, so every time that I see him from here on in, I find him at the con, and I'll put the claws on the jacket, and I walk purposely right through his line, which is always huge. And he seems to know when it's coming now, because he sees me and he just starts laughing. And he said, "Get in here," to be behind the desk with him. And this time he said, "Say something," because he started filming. He has a podcast or something. Or I don't know what he was doing. He said, "Just say hello." I said, "Folks, the Wolverine is right here." He said, "Come on, say something." I said, "You say something. You're supposed to be Wolverine too. You do it." So one of those things. And the people in line are just flipping out. Now they're like running in, just like getting out of line to see what's going on between the two. And I was on this little podcast that he had or something. So I said hello to the fans, and I said, I just went, thanks, see ya. Gotta go. I'm busy, unlike this guy.
Hey, Toonami, I have a little surprise for you. Guess who is here? Show the claws. You gotta show the claws.
Where's the surprise?
Cal Dodd, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my God! Wolverine!
Yeah, I know.
Let's hear it, bub.
Goodbye. No.
All right, just tell me to back off.
Who?
Back off.
Back off. Oh.
Nice. My life is now complete.
I don't know what you think.
Meanwhile, his line is like 2 hours long.
Yes, his lines are huge, man.
And I was like that in Phoenix. Mine was 2 hours in Phoenix, and the guys the what do you call them? The security guards at the end of the day came up and said, "We have to meet you because these people are like waiting in line for 2 hours to see you." And said they've become friends and they've exchanged phone numbers and addresses. By the time they get up here, about like 20 in a row, or all know each other. "Hey, give me a call. I'll meet you. We'll go out for a drink or something." Because 2 hours, and that's why it just bugs me that they have to do that. you know. But it's just it's a great compliment. But I just and they say, well, it's worth it. And I said, yeah, I know, but and I spend the same amount of time with all of them, and that's apparently my problem. They said, Cal, no, because I have a handler who's like, you know, you need to pick it up because the show ends in like 45 minutes. You have like a 2-hour lineup. We have to do something, and I hate doing that. I said, no, they waited in line this far to get up here. I'm gonna say, hey, bye, here you go, bye, get out of here. No, never. I will never do that.
No,
So I wait and I stay overtime till instead of quitting at 7 o'clock, I go on till 8, like until the line's gone. Yeah, no biggie for me because I love them.
I love that you have that perspective on fandom and stuff, because sometimes you see like
Steve is just he's just a fantastic guy.
Steve does too. Yeah, he oh god, one of the greatest. I will never forget this year. I was at his panel, and like I know him and stuff, and I went up and I was like hyping up his panel. I was being all loud and stuff, and I went up to ask him a question, and he was like, "Stay right there," and he just turns the mic and he's like, "I want you guys to meet me," and he gives me a shout out in front of all like this room of like 100 people.
Yeah,
I'll never forget that. You know, he's just a sweetheart. I'm so glad you got to meet him.
Definite sweetheart.